Warning: viewer discretion is advised. Hi friends, welcome to Meals 10 Alive 4, where we talk about a true crime case and make a death row meal from scratch. Only today we're not doing that. We're doing something a little bit different, so let me tell you about it. Now that I have your attention, I'm your host Jody Breton, and we're going to be covering a location once a month. And you might be asking, what does that mean? Well, let me tell you. Basically, if I find an interesting location with either a dark history, maybe a murder happened there, or just interesting overall, then I'll cover it here and also make a meal based on that location. So my very first location that I'm going to be covering here is Calico Ghost Town. Let me get into the history of Calico first. If you don't know where Calico is, it's located in the Calico Mountains of the Mojave Desert of Southern California. The earliest settlers named it Calico due to the calico-colored mountain ranges. Prospectors first came to Calico in 1875, but it wasn't until 5 years later that they discovered ore that started a rush. Then in the spring of 1881 came the discovery of Silver King, Calico's richest mine. With mining booming, a small town developed, including a small stamp mill among other businesses such as saloons. In the spring of 1883, many miners left Calico when borax was discovered 3 miles east. Later that same year, a fire broke out and destroyed much of the camp, but Calico boomed again with additional silver mines discovered. This caused yet another population boom, causing the population to rise to around 2,500 people, and the town supported 24 saloons as well as a church, school, and many retail businesses. By the late 1800s, Calico was bustling with prospectors searching for their fortunes, and Calico mining was some of the richest in the state. At its peak, Calico would produce 86 million in silver and 45 million in borax. However, when the price of silver dropped from $1.31 an ounce to 63 cents in the mid-1890s, Calico became a shadow of its former self. The town officially died in 1907 when borax mining ended as well. 1917, a cyanide plant was built in Calico, recovering the value from the silver mines. However, by 1935, the town was abandoned once again. One of the founding prospectors was John C. King, who had the mine named after him, known as Silver King, like we talked about earlier, and he was Walter Knott's uncle. So if you guys have heard of Knott's Berry Farms, that was the original Walter Knott. Walter had helped build the silver mine in Calico when he was a child and teenager, so in 1950, Knott's purchased Calico, then restored it to what it is today. One thing that Walter did preserve was an actual silver mine called Maggie's Mine. Throughout the mine, there's a lot of information about mining with the tools that they had and what living conditions looked like. There's a section of the mine called Dead Man's Drift because an entire room would be dug out if the ore was concentrated enough, but this was very dangerous because there was a bigger risk for a cave-in. When I was walking through the mine, I felt very uncomfortable near the portion with Dead Man's Drift. It didn't feel like that throughout the entire mine because there's quite a bit of area to walk around and cover. It was just in that area. It felt like something or someone was like right behind me, and it felt very heavy and very unwelcoming. So I did feel like there was somewhat of a presence, whether you believe in that kind of thing or not. That was just the feeling that I got while in there. I unfortunately could not find how many deaths there were due to mining accidents, but I am pretty convinced that there is still one down there in Maggie Mine. So I wish I knew who he was and what happened to him, but I could not find any information regarding accidents. Some of the more notable deaths was the murder of Harry Dodson in 1889. Dodson robbed the Runover mine superintendent James Patterson and took off with the payroll, $4,395, which was equivalent to about $150,000 in today's money. When the law didn't act quickly enough, a posse was formed and they found 22-year-old Dodson the next day and killed him in a gunfight. His body was brought back and buried in the cemetery. The coroner lists his death as a justifiable homicide at the hands of Patterson and John Ackerman, the saloon owner. Another murder in Calico was that of Albert Rowland, a mining broker from Los Angeles who was in Calico on business. Rowland was involved in a car dispute at the Dickerson and Mosley Saloon on the morning of May 17, 1896. During the dispute, he was shot and killed by Edward Scolland, who was later sentenced to 7 years at San Quentin Prison. In 1888, a diphtheria swept through the town, killing several of the town's children. And in case you didn't know, like I didn't know, diphtheria is a serious bacterial infection, so it was a sickness that took many of the children since vaccines were not common yet. With so many deaths, let's talk about the hauntings of Calico. One of the most famous spirits that seem to haunt Calico is that of Lucy Lane. Lucy originally came to Calico when she was 10, and at one point she left and came back in 1916 and was married to John Robert Lane. She was known as the Queen of Calico, as she had lived there for nearly 67 years. Lucy's husband died in 1934, and Lucy passed in 1967 at 93. Lucy can be seen in a lace black dress walking between her home and the general store, or even rocking in her rocking chair. Employees have said that items move through the Lucy house, which is now a museum, and sometimes they hear footsteps throughout the house. Visitors have also seen children and a teacher in the schoolhouse, even though there isn't anyone there and it isn't open to the public. One spirit, a little girl around the age of 11, seems to be more outgoing. It's said that she shows herself to other children or teens, but vanishes before adults can see her. People also see Tumbleweed Harris, also known as Donald Willard, wandering the streets of Calico. He was a marshal for the town for 7 years, but also worked as a street character for Knott's Berry Farm. He's also buried in Calico Cemetery, so if you make it up there, please make sure to stop by his grave. Some other haunted hotspots in Calico include Maggie's Mine, Hank's Hotel, and the Calico Corral. Like I said earlier, I had that weird experience in Maggie's Mine where I definitely felt like there was a heavy presence. I did not get that feeling anywhere else in the town. I did ask an employee of one of the shops, like, hey, is this place actually haunted? What are your feelings? And she said, before I had mentioned the mine, she said that she did not like going into Maggie's Mine near the Dead Man's Drift. And that's exactly where I had my experience that day. She also said that she had seen some things in the Lucy Lane house. So that all made sense to me, but she hadn't had any other experiences. Overall, I really enjoyed going to Calico. There's quite a bit to do in one little area. There is the Maggie Mine. You can have lunch there. There's a small train if, you want to do that with your kids if you have them. It's also very dog friendly. In Calico, there's actually a whole store dedicated to dogs. It made me sad that I didn't bring one of my hooligans, but there's lots and lots to do. It was honestly worth the drive. There's lots of different shops to walk through in general if you like doing that sort of thing. I love to walk through and window shop and look at everything. There was a very cool crystal/rock shop that I got to walk through, and I got a couple geodes, which was super fun. And there's also a restaurant. We went and had lunch there. They had a pretty decent burger, but I really, really enjoyed the boysenberry soda that they had, which I thought was really different. My husband had a sarsaparilla, but he also tried my boysenberry soda, which was super good. On the way out, we made sure to swing by Calico Cemetery, and it's really interesting because they bury people by piling rocks on top of them. I'm assuming that they're somewhat buried, but that's how they mark the different graves. And unfortunately, they just did it with wood, so a lot of the graves are unmarked. Apparently, they have identified 90 of the 150 graves out there, but they still don't know everybody who is out there. So that's the only hard part is you really don't know who you're looking at or whose grave it is unless it's like a recent grave. Either way, we made sure to pay our respects to anybody who might still be there because overall it was a really great day. My only complaint about Calico is that there really isn't much to do around it. It is in the middle of nowhere, so it's not like there's other things to do around the area, which I would still drive to Calico just to have fun in itself, but just a heads up, if you're looking for other things to do around it, there isn't much. In honor of Calico, I made an entire meal based off the location. So I made a stew, a big thing of cornbread, some pecan pie, and a cocktail consisting of bourbon, mezcal, and agave syrup. I felt like this was the perfect meal representing Calico, the rich, like hearty stew that represents like the hard work that people put into this place. The cornbread complements it perfectly. I feel like pecan pie would definitely be a staple. And I felt like the drink was perfect. My husband said it was too strong. I didn't think so. I felt like it was the perfect balance of like sweet and the strong bourbon. So I really enjoyed all of it. Hopefully, you guys really enjoyed this new segment that I'm doing with the locations. I'm super excited about it. If you're wondering when the next one will be released, it'll be the last week of every month. We'll switch gears from the true crime and go into the dark history of each location. And let me know if you guys have a specific location that you want me to cover. I would love to hear from you. Please like, subscribe, all of that jazz, and I will see you guys next week. Bye.